Hi, everybody. Thanks for waiting. We wanted to thank you all for joining us and welcome to our webinar. My name is Katie Garrett. I am the Director of Business Development with Userify. Userify is an SSH key manager for cloud-based teams. Our topic for today is how Snag centralized SSH key management with Userify and Amazon Web Services. Presenting today are Userify CEO Jamieson Becker, Binoy from AWS, and Jordan Mance, Zach Roof, and Jim Woodward from the Snag team. If you have any questions during our presentation, please type them into the control panel box and they will be answered at the end. Now, without further ado, Binoy is here to get us started.
Hello, everyone. My name is Binoy Das. I am a partner solution architect here in AWS. In my role, I work with various AWS partners who provide products and services on top of AWS platform. And today, I'm happy to be joined by Userify, who is one of our technology service partner. And together, we will walk you through some of the security practices that AWS provides. And in the later part of the presentation, you will also see how Userify provides the technology services and extends the security posture, the security capability, and helps a customer of ours, Snag, to adopt a better security posture. So with that being said, let's begin. So let's first walk you through the several AWS tools and services that are available at your disposal that allows you to strengthen your security posture. So at AWS, security is and always will be our top priority. So we offer both a secure cloud computing environment and some innovative security services that satisfy the security and compliance needs of the most risk-sensitive organizations. We have millions of active customers around the world, and they represent a diverse set of industries with a wide range of use cases, including large enterprises, startups, education institutions, and government organizations. The scale and global reach of these customers gives us a broad perspective on cloud security. So as I said, we do have some very large and very demanding customers who always expect the best, especially when it comes to security. The core infrastructure at AWS is monitored 24/7 by some of the world's top security experts. And those same experts also build and maintain our area of security services, which can help you simplify meeting your own security and regulatory requirements. As an AWS customers, when you move your workload to AWS, regardless of your size, you inherit all the benefits of our experience. And our security posture is tested against the strictest of third-party assurance framework. So talking about the assurance framework, let's move on to the next slide. AWS has achieved a comprehensive list of third-party validation for global compliance requirement. And we continually monitor these to help you meet security and compliance standard for finance, retail, healthcare, government, and beyond. You inherit the latest security controls operated by AWS, strengthening your own compliance and certification programs. You also receive access to tools that you can use to reduce your cost and time to run your own specific security assessment requirements. For AWS, we have achieved a number of internationally recognized certification and accreditation that demonstrate compliance with third-party assurance frameworks such as ISO 27001, ISO 27017 for cloud security, ISO 27018 for privacy, and ISO 9001, which is primarily for healthcare, life sciences, and medical devices, automotive, and aerospace manufacturing. For global verticals, we have AWS PCI and SOC 1, 2, and 3 compliance level that set the tone for enabling customers in their overall credit card payment and audit framework programs. For US healthcare law, we have HIPAA certification, CGIS for US criminal justice, SEC Rule 17A to 4F, and IRS 1075 for financial services, tax information encryption, and so on. Furthermore, AWS's international offerings are rapidly expanding. Currently, we have IRAP for Australia, FISC for Japan's financial services, MTCS for Singapore, G-Cloud for UK, IT Grundschutz for Germany, MLPS Level 3 for China. So you can see we do provide assurance across the geographies around the globe. And finally, AWS has achieved a number of public sector certifications as well, such as FedRAMP at the moderate and high level, federal government systems, which also validate our FISMA and ITAR compliance as well. The next pillar in the security is privacy. And at AWS, we take privacy very seriously. We are always vigilant about our customers' privacy. So when you move your data onto AWS as a customer, you always retain the complete control of your data on AWS, including the ability to encrypt it, move it, and manage the retention period according to your needs. AWS never inspects any of the contents that belongs to our customer. We provide tools that allow you to easily encrypt your data in transit and at rest to help you ensure that only authorized users can access it. You can use AWS Key Management System, or you can also manage your own encryption keys with Cloud HSM. We also give you the control and visibility you need to help demonstrate that you comply with the regional and local data privacy laws and regulations. The design of our global infrastructure allows you to retain complete control over the regions in which your data is physically located, helping you meet your data residency requirements. Now, with that background being said, on the next slide, I'd like to walk you briefly through some of the security solutions from the tools and services perspective that we have on offer. So when it comes to security, there are 5 different areas that we offer services on, and the first being identity. So controlling identity means authorization control for your users. The first service I'd like to discuss with you is the Identity and Access Management, which is a web service that helps you securely control access to your AWS resources. You use IAM to control who is authenticated and authorized to use your AWS resources. Another service in this area is AWS Organization, which is an account management service that lets you consolidate multiple AWS accounts into an organization. AWS Cognito is another service that you can use to create unique identities for your users and authenticate these identities with third-party identity providers as well. These are used by our customers for things like mobile and web application authentication using SAML standard. AWS Directory Service is our cloud directory service that, along with Amazon Cognito and other AWS services, allows you to centralize authentication with your organization's internal access control system. Moving on to detective control, AWS CloudTrail is a service that allows you to monitor AWS deployments in the cloud by getting a history of all the AWS API calls for your account. And when I say API calls, do keep in mind that each and every interaction that you do as a customer with your AWS resources translate to API calls. So what this means is no matter what operations you are doing on your AWS resources, AWS CloudTrail is always keeping a track of that, which you can analyze later using other AWS services such as Kinesis, or as I'm going to tell you, describe that there are other off-the-shelf services as well that you can use. AWS Config is another service that always gives you a detailed view of the resources associated to your account. And this includes how they are configured, how they're related to one another, and how the configuration and the relationship have changed over time. All of these services are also capable to send you trigger notification that you can use to take proactive action whenever you see some unexpected change in your resources. Amazon Guard Duty is another continuous security monitoring service. So this is a dynamic monitoring in saying that it actually helps you identify unexpected and potentially unauthorized and malicious activities on your AWS environments. A complementary service to this is VPC Flow Logs, which is a feature that enables you to capture information about all the IP traffic going in and out of your network interfaces from your VPC. Flow log data is stored using CloudWatch logs, and after you have created a flow log, you can view and retrieve its data on CloudWatch logs. Moving on to the infrastructure security, this is more of a static analysis of your security. The first service I'd like to discuss here is the Systems Manager. So AWS Systems Manager helps you organize, monitor, and automate management tasks on your AWS resources. We also provide tools to mitigate DDoS attacks. So AWS Shield Standard and AWS Shield Advanced are the two tiers of the AWS Shield product that you can use to mitigate DDoS attacks to your Amazon EC2 instances, to your Elastic Load Balancers, and Amazon CloudFront distribution. When you host a web application on AWS, we also offer AWS WAF, which is a web application firewall service that you can put in top of your Amazon CloudFront distribution or your application load balancer. You can use AWS WAF to block or allow requests based on conditions that you specify, such as the IP address that request originate from or values in the request. Amazon Inspector is another static vulnerability assessment tool that helps improve the security and compliance of your resources. Amazon Inspector automatically assesses resources for vulnerabilities or deviations from best practices, and then produces a detailed list of security findings prioritized by levels of security. And finally, Amazon Virtual Private Cloud enables you to launch AWS resources into a virtual network that you have defined. Using this software-defined virtual network closely resembles a traditional network that you operate in your own data center today, with the benefits of using the scalable infrastructure of AWS. Moving on to data protection, AWS Key Management Services, as I was telling you before, is an encryption and key management service which is scaled for the cloud. KMS keys and functionalities are used by other AWS services, and you can use them to protect the data in your own application on AWS. AWS Cloud HSM offers a secure cryptographic key storage for customers who needs full control over their encryption keys and want to go beyond AWS KMS. Another very advanced service that we have recently launched is Amazon Mance, which is a security service that uses machine learning to automatically discover, classify, and protect sensitive data on AWS. Amazon Mance recognizes sensitive data, such as personally identifiable information or intellectual properties, and provides you with dashboard and alerts that give visibility into how this data is being accessed or moved. You can also use AWS config to evaluate the configuration setting for your AWS resources. You do this by creating config rules, which represent your ideal configuration settings. AWS config provides customizable predefined rules called managed rules to help you get started. You can also create your own custom rules. AWS config continuously tracks the configuration changes that occur among your resources, and when it detects a violation, it can send you a notification depending on how you configure the service. And last but not the least, I'd like to also touch base upon another very important service is AWS Lambda. Lambda in itself is the cornerstone of what we call the serverless architecture pattern, but you can also use Lambda to run monitoring services and use any of the services that I just described. Along with that, use AWS Lambda to send trigger to your email, mobile, or SNS topic. So as you see, using these whole set of tools, we allow our customers to maintain an appropriate security posture. But it doesn't end there. We also have a very active partner community that helps customers adopt a better security posture by providing tools and services that extends the native capability that we provide at AWS. So next, you would see how Userify brings a solution that helps you manage your team's user accounts across all VPCs. And as we go forward, you will also learn how Userify helps Snag with their product.
Josh, thanks so much. That was fantastic, Binoy. And everyone, thank you very much for coming out today and joining us for this very first Userify AWS joint webinar. My name is Jamieson Becker, and I'm the CEO of Userify. When we first launched Userify, we were looking to solve a very specific use case of SSH key and user management in a very dynamic cloud environment where instances or servers would disappear or change IP addresses on the fly. And that's still our target use case today. Userify is designed to be the simplest, easiest, and most secure way to solve user management in the cloud today. Our relationship with both AWS and Snag goes back many years, and we are proud to announce that we are now an AWS Advanced Technical Partner. We appreciate AWS and Snag taking the time today to help us present this solution. Let's walk through why Userify, or why Userify in relation to other alternative solutions. The one differentiator that we really want to focus on is that you need to stop sharing keys. It is a common thing that we see in EC2 every day, where someone signs up with an EC2 user account, or they sign up with an Ubuntu user account, and that key, that public key, or that key pair that's generated within AWS or within your local account, ends up getting shared across an entire team. And that is just really a very dangerous thing. If a user decides to move on to another company, or moves to a different team, that user account, recycling that user account and changing that key is problematic. And so Userify lets you manage your team's user accounts across all of your VPCs. And the way it works is it basically allows each instance to make an HTTPS connection to your Userify server, whether that's the Userify cloud server or whether that's a self-hosted Userify service inside your VPC. It simply makes a very simple HTTPS outbound connection to that instance, and then it continuously pulls to say, hey, what are my new user accounts, and what do I need to create for those user accounts, or what are the user accounts that I need to delete? So as you'll see, that this is really a centralized user management platform, but with decentralized operations, so that even if your Userify server, or even if our Userify cloud goes down or is no longer available, or routing tables change, you can still log into that instance because your account was created prior to that. And so the other thing that makes this very, very helpful is when you're doing something like an auto scaling group in EC2, you essentially can already log into that instance with an up-to-date list of users and an up-to-date list of user keys before you even, even if you've never logged into it before. So it's designed to be fast, easy, and simple, and every user gets their own user dashboard where they can actually update their own SSH public keys. It's very important to note that we don't look for any SSH private key material. We don't want any of your secret material. That stuff is best kept on your developers or DevOps laptops. We don't want to see that inside Userify. And so what we are really looking for is just the public key, which is exactly as the name implies. It's something that you could post on a website, and it's not something that you could derive back to the private key. We then deploy that public key onto all of your instances, or the instances where you are allocated permissions. And that public key, even if that instance has been compromised, it's not like a password where it can be, where you can derive back the private key. So even if one instance gets attacked and successfully taken over, they can't use that secret, that material, that public material, to break into other instances in your VPC. So some of the other things that Userify does for you is it also provides a color-coded visibility into your organizational and project permissions. As you can see on the screenshot there, you've got red and green for root and user accounts, and then just none is the no user account. And if you do not have access to a particular server group or to a particular project at all, you won't see them in your list. So your specific dashboard only shows you access to what you actually can log into. So this helps you get compliant with PCI DSS and HIPAA and NIST, and it allows you to really get some more oversight and introspection into your cloud VPCs and all of your cloud accounts. You can use a single Userify server or service across all of your VPCs. You do not need to use them with just one account. So that's very helpful if you're doing things like separate staging and test and Q&A and different kinds of environments and accounts. So let's go ahead and do a quick demonstration on how Userify can actually be deployed inside your VPC. What we'll do is we'll actually go ahead and I'm just going to import my key from GitHub. It's probably a little bit quicker. This is how you can actually import your key from GitHub. It will actually pull it in. It is a public key, so this is a public service that both GitHub and GitLab provide. If you don't know how to generate a key and you want to generate a key instead, you can actually click on this Need Help link. But what we're going to do instead of actually importing the key is we're going to actually generate a key. So this is going to be slightly different on Mac OS from Windows from Linux. This is a Linux desktop, obviously, so we're just going to go ahead and do it this way. So we're generating the key. We're going to go ahead and leave no passphrase. In general, you should probably put a passphrase there, but we're going to go ahead and skip that. So we're going to take this public key and we're just going to paste it in here. And then we're going to click Save. And this account has just a company created, but no projects yet. So let's create a project. And within this project, we'll create some server groups. Actually go to the projects. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and grant ourselves permission, root permission on this project. And we're going to go to this menu and we're going to choose deploy with cloud in it. With Userify, you can deploy a lot of different ways. As you can see, Ansible, Chef, Puppet, Terraform is just a modification of the bash script to turn on the background for sudo. You can deploy with just plain old bash just by pasting this into any instance. So it's a one-liner. We break it up here. If you want to actually do it even quicker, you can just click instant deployment, and here's a real one-liner. Now this is because this is a short string and it might be guessable, this link will expire in 1 hour. So this would not be suitable for an auto-scaling group, but it would be perfect if you're just going into, to get a single server up into a web server group. In Userify, every server that you manage has to be in a server group. So let's go ahead and deploy one here. We're going to go ahead and use the cloud config template. This is basically something that would be easy to integrate into CloudFormation. And so we're going to launch an instance. Just pick Amazon Linux. And now if we scroll down here to advanced details, we get a user data box. And here we can paste in either a bash script or an entire user data script. So we're going to use the user data script here. We'll just click review and launch. And we don't actually need any key pairs because Userify will provide that for us. So we can hit launched instances and let it rip. So while we're waiting for that to launch, let's talk a little bit more about this. When you deploy a server group and you've got your servers within that server group, you can actually launch as many servers as you like within that server group. The server group will always have the same, each of the servers in that server group will always have the same permissions layout. So if you have, a specific set of user accounts that it makes sense to, always make sure that they're on the same amount of servers, it would make sense to put that in a server group. So this is a good example of this would probably be something like an auto-scaling group for your application. Userify Cloud comes with 20 servers free, so you can actually just go ahead and probably launch a good portion of the servers in your entire project for free. Once you tick over on the 20 server mark, then we start billing. However, you can go ahead and use it anyway without being prompted for a credit card, and you'll see basically you receive an invoice at the end of the month, and if you choose to continue, then you can move forward with that then. So let's go back and see if we can get into this server. Let's make sure we actually have the right username here. Okay, so as you can see, we are able to log into this instance, even though we have never logged in it before, and even though it's a brand new instance. So we can take a look quick and take a look at these user accounts that are created here. As you can see, we've got EC2 user and Jamieson demo. EC2 user has not been removed from the system because EC2 user is not an official Userify account. Userify looks at these accounts and says, I didn't create Userify EC2 user, so I'm not going to do anything to it. The existing accounts on the system are not touched by Userify. Userify will only touch accounts that it knows it can manage and it created. The way it knows that is by a comment field in your Etsy password file. So this is the only user account that is managed. So if you want to actually remove that EC2 user account, the easiest way to do that is to just change the comment field. And in a few seconds, it will actually be removed. It takes about 90 seconds or so on the Userify cloud instance. If you're running your own Userify, it can be set from anywhere from 5 seconds to 300 seconds. So as you can see also, it automatically renamed that account to deleted. So that home directory is still available if you need to go in and see what a user account was doing, or if you need to retain it for forensics or anything like that. All right, so here we are, and we can actually see that this is now available as a server that could be logged into. These other users on this account, any of these users are not able to see this server group. They don't have any access, so therefore they cannot actually see these particular servers. They can't even see the project, that the project exists, in fact. So with that, I think we're done with the demo. So let's go back to our Okay, so how does Userify actually work with AWS? As you can see, it's a very fast deploy. Userify, the Userify agent is actually on the instance within a few seconds. In fact, usually it's less than a second. So it's a very, very fast to start up. It's a very simple Python script. It's about 500 lines, and it is available at GitHub, so you can go ahead and take a look at it and maybe even provide some feedback. Every single one of those recipes that you saw there were actually provided to us by customers. The Ansible, the Puppet, the Chef, every one of them was provided by customers, and certainly we are open to seeing any other, method that you can, containerize and put in there. Speaking of containers, Userify, the server can actually be deployed within a container as well. Integration with CloudFormation and other configuration management engines, and you can use it with every major Linux distribution, including, of course, AWS's Amazon Linux 1 and 2, Red Hat, RHEL 6 and 7, or later, Ubuntu 14 or later, Debian 7, 8, and 9, OpenSUSE and SUSE Enterprise Linux. There's basically, if you can run it on Linux on an x64 machine, we probably support it. And if we don't, then you need to just let us know and we'll get on that right away. All right, so I'm gonna turn this over to Snag at this point. So.
Yeah, hey, Jamieson, thanks for all of that. My name is Jim. I'm on the infrastructure team here at Snag. Today I'm joined by two of my colleagues who are also on the infrastructure team with me, Zach and Jordan. Next slide, please. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Snag, we are the nation's leading hourly job search engine. A quick history of our company. We've started in 2000, so we've been around for a very long time. And we first moved to the cloud in 2015. We did a huge migration from on-premise servers to Amazon, and we have been in Amazon ever since. Next slide, please. Thanks. So our product, by the stats, we have over 400,000 employer locations. So those are, like a McDonald's or a Subway or a Chick-fil-A, located all across the United States and across Canada as well. In terms of growth that we're seeing, we have about 1.5 million new members every single month. So we are constantly scaling, constantly growing, constantly adapting how we design things. And in terms of traffic, we have about 10 million users come use our site every month searching for jobs. And on the next slide, we will get into some of the infrastructure that supports those products. Real quickly, you can see that we run over 1,000 EC2 instances. We have hundreds of containers in production. Our two primary applications each have 1,500 and 500 requests a second throughout the day, respectively. So, we really are running at scale, and we do have quite a lot of infrastructure to manage. One of the key things I'd like to draw y'all's attention to, though, is the number of engineers we have and the number of EC2 instances. We have 80 plus engineers. We have over 1,000 EC2 instances. So that's a lot of people trying to get access to a lot of machines. And we need to do that in a secure and easy to manage way. That's where Userify comes in. And I believe my colleague Zach is up next, and he will go more into the details about how we use Userify here at Snag. Oh, excuse me.
Hey.
My colleague Jordan's going to go.
Hey, thanks, Jim. Sorry about that. We had some last minute changes. So basically, when Snag was evaluating a solution for handling and solving this problem of having many different engineers and thousands of hosts, ephemeral hosts at that, we basically had a number of requirements. And when we came across Userify, we kind of realized that this was a great solution that kind of ticked all the boxes for us. We're a company that focuses on automation and DevOps and basically DevSecOps principles. And we believe that Userify aligns itself with DevSecOps principles that are compatible with kind of how we operate internally. So some of the really big features that were very important to us was the ability to create and remove users' access very quickly, having role-based access control, as Jamieson previously mentioned. And overall, our experience with Userify has been that it's a tool that does its particular job incredibly well. In fact, I can't think of a single instance in our multi-year history using Userify where it has not operated exactly as we expected. So ultimately, it allows us and our infrastructure team to focus on delivering, empowering our engineers and delivering value, which ultimately improves our competitiveness in the market and focus on doing what we want to do rather than dealing with maintenance and a lot of system overhead that comes with SSH key management. Next slide, please. So internally in our AWS, our architecture is spread across a number of accounts. We have 5 primary accounts. On those accounts, we have over 12 ECS clusters each, and 130 independent containerized microservices that are currently kind of live in production. We also have dozens of legacy continuously integrated services deployed as virtual machines as well. So they are not run on Docker. And all of these services see variable load throughout the day. And so our clusters are constantly scaling based on our ingress traffic. And our target architecture is even spread out even more across more accounts. And we have an internal goal, and hopefully we will be able to achieve it next year, that the maximum life of any one of our hosts is 30 days. Essentially, we want to kind of cycle through our hosts on a regular basis, and Userify is really critical for us to be able to do that and ensure that we still have access to the hosts we need access to and when. So as we continue to progress towards this goal, and since our hosts are constantly scaling up and down throughout the day, we need to ensure that in event of an incident, or we need to create access or remove access for one of our engineers, that we can do that and that access is propagated very quickly and also with the appropriate level of permissions for that user. So Userify is perfect for our architectural goal and our current architecture, which is why we ended up choosing to work with Userify. Next slide, please. So finally, like what it solves for us is granular control over user and host access, very fast onboarding and offboarding, and it allows us to handle, or allows even our own engineers to manage their public keys through Userify or through GitHub, so that we don't have to kind of, on the ops team, have to juggle all of these different balls trying to maintain and access and all that. So I'm going to hand it over to Zach. He is a security engineer on our operations team as well. He's going to talk about some more security concerns and how Userify addresses them.
Hey, thanks so much, Jordan. So yeah, I mean, kind of going back to the role-based access control of the roles of none, user, and root. And if you kind of look at the dashboard, and Jamieson basically showed this in a previous view, I really like the ability, and I've always loved the ability when I sign into the dashboard to easily tell for a given user which is the highest risk area. Okay, so you can see the root user, or the root role, excuse me, it's in red. And that's kind of the thing. It's like, if you ever are into, unfortunately, if you're ever, your security was compromised or whatnot, you could go into this dashboard and really, just really quickly be able to tell kind of where you need to, shut down and restrict access pretty much on the fly. And yeah, it's pretty awesome. I mean, the only other item that I'd like to kind of touch upon really quick here in this slide is when Jamieson talked about removing that default EC2 user. I think that is a huge gain, just because since that EC2 user by default isn't tied to a specific identity, it's a little bit nebulous. And I mean, as your security posture kind of heightens or just kind of starts to increase over time, I think it's really a best practice to get that to disable that user, and you can do that through Userify, which I found to be a pretty awesome feature. Next slide, please. So basically, just to kind of recap some of the security items, is quick key revocation helps mitigate some security issues if needed. And once again, as we talked about, Jamieson kind of talked about before, the quickness of the shim and the basically the agent that Userify has on the EC2 host is so quick that, if you have some security issues, they can quickly propagate and kind of update and lock stuff down. And we've kind of talked about the SSH key import from GitHub, but I really enjoy that feature, especially from a security perspective, because, I mean, what is one of the core pillars of security is really, it's authentication, it's proving your identity. And with that, it's like you can really tie basically your Userify and also just the overarching kind of security of your environment to known identities, such as an individual's identity within GitHub. And with that, you can easily rotate your SSH keys as well, as devs or other people are updating their keys on GitHub. Those can easily kind of propagate out as well. And last and obviously not least, MFA, since Userify basically supports multi-factor authentication out of the box, I can feel pretty confident kind of leveraging the application. It's definitely been great. So yeah, outside of that, I'm just going to give it back to Userify, and yeah, you guys can go ahead and proceed. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Snag. All of you guys, really appreciate you coming on and doing this for us. We'd like to talk about how to get started with Userify. If you haven't already signed up, you can just go to userify.com/signup, and that will provide you with a page to actually create your account. Again, it is free, and you can manage up to 20 servers for free in your account in a given month. You can also launch your own controller in your VPC. This comes with a free, I think, 10 server license. If it isn't 10 server, then you should be able to just email us at enterprise@userify.com, or me personally at jameson.becker@userify.com, and we will make sure that you get a license to do that. And if you'd like to sign up for more technical webinars, we're going to be doing a lot more in-depth and more technical webinars in the near future. And so if you'd like to sign up to join that mailing list, go to https://userify.com/webinars. So those are the three things that you could do right now to get started. To either sign up with our Userify Cloud, to install your own Userify server or service by going to userify.com/install. And also, we do provide a full CloudFormation template if you want to build a Userify cluster in your VPC. So you could actually set that up. It comes pre-configured with your own Redis server and your own auto-scaling group, so you can actually create your own high availability version of Userify Cloud, and of course signing up for webinars. So at this point, we're going to kind of open it up for questions and answers. Hopefully some answers. So if you can go ahead and start putting in some questions into the question box, and we'll start to review those and see if we can get any of those answered for you. Also, if you see an answer or a question that you particularly like and would like us to respond to, you can vote those up as well. We'll give it just a minute or two to see if anyone has any questions. Okay, from Eric Hill, what do you recommend for programmatic access to the same systems? You can actually deploy an SSH private key on those systems. You know, obviously you won't be using a passphrase for that, but you can set up a system level account within Userify that would actually deploy the public keys on those systems. So I assume that this question is not really talking about API access. I assume it's talking about remote automation access, like for Ansible or for backups or something like that. So yeah, you would basically set up a system account. We use a system account called Backups internally that can SSH into remote systems and pull the backups for those systems for anything that isn't otherwise backed up. Another question from Ryan D. Is there a Userify server image available on Docker Hub? Not yet, but that is very interesting. We should talk about that. So if you want to send an email to support@userify.com, we can figure that out. Also from Eric Traub, can you manage user groups? For example, if I want users to be a manage of the Tomcat group, but not root users. That is a very requested feature, and we're adding that very soon. That is definitely important.
Hey, Jamieson, did you see this question from Shay S? What would be the best way to integrate Userify with company AD?
Oh, excellent. So we have a product called Userify Enterprise that can actually integrate with your corporate Active Directory server, and you can actually deploy it, co-locate it with your Active Directory server so that the instances in the cloud, such as you know, your AWS EC2 instances, could actually connect back in through a hole punch in the firewall just on HTTPS only. And so in this case, if you did it like this, Userify would actually be acting as an Active Directory firewall. And so Userify would be able to talk to Active Directory, and the users would actually log in, and when they log in, they authenticate into Active Directory, but then the user accounts that live in Userify, they would actually be deployed with SSH public keys. So that is kind of a more advanced integration. And if you want some assistance with that, or maybe some architectural help, shoot us an email at enterprise@userify.com or at my email address, jameson.becker@userify.com. Another question from Tal. Thanks, Jordan, by the way. Another question from Tal. Just to make sure I got the general concept, would I need to allocate a server as the center of things? If you want to use your own Userify server, if you want to deploy your own inside your VPC, then the answer is yes. You would allocate a server, a Userify server for that, or you could also allocate it as a container within your Kubernetes pod or whatever you like. You basically would have to run a Userify server for that. However, you don't need to do that if you're using Userify Cloud. We manage it for you, so your servers would simply connect up to that server in the Userify Cloud. And the free version, some additional information on that, thanks for that question as well. The free version comes with 20 servers for free. And the way it works is that you deploy up to 20 servers in a month. When you tick over, I think it's either 20 or 21 servers, we will invoice you for that the following month for all of the servers that are in your account. So in other words, it's around $70 or so, I think. For if you had like 21 servers, it would be around $70. So we will invoice you for that. If for some reason you decide that you don't want to do that, if you change your mind, you simply bring your utilization back down and it'll be free again. So you only pay for what you actually use. That is not the case, however, for Userify if you're deploying the Express version in your VPC. That version, you paid monthly for the servers that you expect to run. So you're paying it in advance. And you certainly can run a local Userify version in your VPC. And that would be going to userify.com/install to do that. Another question from from Bala Liar. Would the integration be only with AD or any directory structure like LDAP? It does actually use LDAP under the covers, and so any LDAP supported server can be used. We have customers, some very large customers that are using it with you know, like Open LDAP and let's see, 389DS and things like that. So, let's see here, another question here. The client, the shim is available on GitHub. Has it been through any audits or security reviews you can share? Yes, well, we go through some regular audits of the service itself. We haven't gone through any audits or security reviews of the shim itself. It's a very simple script. You know, so in other words, you can actually review it yourself and read it, and it's very simple. It's less than 500 lines of Python code. So it's almost like pseudocode, and you should be able to scan through it and see what it's actually doing. What it is actually doing under the covers is it's typing in the commands like you would actually type them in. So, you know, it would type in user add or add user exactly as you would expect to type sitting down at the keyboard to set up another account. It uses sudoers.d, so creates the normal sudo file that you would expect. It basically works. It basically automates what you would do if you were sitting at the console. And so another question in chat. I actually don't have chat up here, so let me see if I can pull that up. Can Userify provide command auditing and export for all the SSH connections? This is an excellent question, and we don't have a really good answer here because we normally say, well, you know, go ahead and use something like audit-d, which will then dump that data into Splunk. We haven't really wanted to get into this because we feel like there are other solutions out there that are better, that integrate well with Userify. So, so that is a question that comes up a lot. How do you handle auditing and you know, and logging? The way to do that is, of course, to use another tool, a logging tool that actually is designed to do that. Audit-d is built into the Linux kernel, and it is fantastic. It's a very, very powerful open source tool. However, it is hard to set up, so we may be talking about something that we can do there in the near future. But at this point, we recommend that you configure your auditing and logging through another tool. Userify focuses on creating the user account and managing that user account and keeping it updated. It's not a logging tool as yet. Excellent. Thank you, Tal. And let's see here. Any more questions? Okay, it looks like that's all the questions. Thank you so much for coming today. We really appreciate it. Again, userify.com/install, userify.com/signup, and userify.com/webinar or webinars will get you rolling. Thank you so much for calling or for calling in and for listening to this and for watching this webinar. This is again our very first Userify AWS joint webinar, and with our very special guest Snag. We really appreciate our partners and our customers for standing up and saying they like this product. We hope that we'll be able to do more of these in the future. If you have any more questions about Userify or you'd like to reach out, please reach out to enterprise@userify.com. And I think at this point, I'll turn it over to Katie. Hopefully I didn't take away her whole outro.
Thanks, Jamieson. I just wanted to say one more thank you for everyone for being here today. As Jamieson said, you can visit our website for some additional information or head over there to sign up. We also encourage you to contact us directly at info@userify.com or enterprise@userify.com for any other questions. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Snag team and AWS for being here today. And thanks everyone for joining us once more.